the 10 most successful vaccines of history. So let's get right into it. We usually take vaccines for granted, right? After all, they've been around for decades, some given to our grandparents or even great grandparents. So much so, we were shocked by a modern pandemic in 2020, due in part to the lack of a ready COVID vaccine. How could that be? Anti vaxxers, likewise, have been with us since the dawn of vaccinations, often questioning their safety or efficacy, or not trusting big pharma or big government. But more often, they object to the infringement on their rights when mandated, even for the public good. So, how did we get here? Here's a quick history of the top 10 vaccines and immunization campaigns over the last 225 years. That's right, we've had vaccines since the 18th century. Number 1, smallpox in 1796. It all started there. British doctor Edward Jenner speculated that protection from the dreaded smallpox disease could be obtained through inoculation with the related cowpox virus. He boldly tested his theory by inoculating the arm of an 8-year-old boy named James Phipps with cowpox pustule liquid taken from the arm of a milkmaid named Sarah Nelmes. And it worked. And today, smallpox has been all but eradicated globally. Number 2, rabies in 1885. The first attenuated or weakened live viral vaccine was developed by none other than Louis Pasteur, using desiccated rabbit brain tissue inactivated with formaldehyde. Crude, yes, but effective. A 9-year-old boy in France, mauled by a rabid dog, was the first to receive the injections from Pasteur himself. Number 3, pertussis, or whooping cough, in 1914. The vaccine, a suspension of whole cell, inactive Bordetella pertussis bacteria, was first developed by American pediatrician Lila Denmark. Inactivated vaccines were prepared with a virus that had been killed, usually once again, with a strong chemical like formaldehyde. Next came not another vaccine, but a pandemic. The infamous Spanish flu of 1918 killed over 50 million people worldwide after World War I. This particular influenza virus was unusual since it spread so quickly around the globe and was so deadly among the young and healthy adults. About 1/3 of the world, over 50 million people, were infected over its 2-year scourge. Number 4, diphtheria, also known as the strangler, in 1924. Diphtheria caused severe throat inflammation in children, often leading to suffocation. Diphtheria toxoid was developed from an inactivated bacterial toxin that lost its toxicity when heated, but kept its antitoxin and immunogenic properties. French Dr. Gaston Ramon discovered the diphtheria toxoid at none other than the Pasteur Institute in Paris. Number 5, tuberculosis, otherwise known as consumption, in 1927. The Bacille Calmette-Guerin, or BCG vaccine, consisted of live but attenuated Mycobacterium bovis. It became the most widely administered vaccine in the World Health Organization's arsenal. Tested in cattle, it was first given to a French newborn baby in Paris, whose mother had the tuberculosis disease. Number 6, yellow fever in 1935. Epidemics spread by mosquitoes and swamps attacked the men building the Panama Canal in 1912. A live vaccine was developed by Max Thieler, who famously used chicken eggs for cultivating the vaccine on a large scale. It was also used widely on Allied troops in World War II in the Pacific Theater against the Japanese Empire. Number 7, influenza in 1942. The first flu vaccine was introduced to the armed forces first during World War II, also mass-produced in chicken eggs. The vaccine was licensed for public use in 1945 and following the war was also used on civilians. Today's annual flu vaccines offer immunization against multiple flu strains at once, but as we all know, are not 100% effective. A sidebar here for penicillin in 1943. Not a vaccine, but just as important for diseases caused by bacterial infections. This medical miracle was first discovered by Alexander Fleming in 1928, then mass-produced for World War II. It played a vital role in treating the infected wounds of soldiers during that war, then the civilian population later. Today, its overuse has led to penicillin-resistant strains of bacteria. Number 8. DPT in 1948. The first ever combination child vaccine was licensed for diphtheria, pertussis, and the new tetanus in a single shot to the buttocks. It was revolutionary and praised by pediatricians and parents around the world. No more coaxing frightened children into 3 needle injections. I know, I was one of them. Booster shots for DPT are typically given 10 years later. Number 9. Polio in 1955. People sent dimes to the White House to help find a vaccine for the dreaded infantile paralysis, or polio, which famously attacked President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The inactivated polio vaccine was licensed in 1955, and its inventor, American Dr. Jonas Salk, became an overnight global hero. In 1961, an oral polio vaccine was developed by Dr. Albert Sabin, grown in monkey kidney cells, and licensed for use in the United States. The oral vaccine is what's given today. Number 10. MMR in 1971. The second famous combo childhood vaccine was for measles, mumps, and rubella, all childhood diseases. The first live but attenuated measles vaccine was licensed in 1963. A live mumps vaccine was developed in 1967 by Dr. Maurice Hilleman, who isolated the virus from his own daughter Gerald as she was recovering from mumps. A rubella or German measles vaccine was licensed in 1969, grown in duck, dog, or rabbit kidney cells. They are combined together in a single shot in 1971. By the 1980s, 7 vaccines were widely administered to children. Because 6 were now combined into 2 shots, the DPT and MMR, and 1, the oral polio vaccine, was given by mouth, kids received only 5 shots from their pediatricians, including boosters, by the time they were 2, and never more than 1 shot per visit. Quite nice for parents. Since then, more modern vaccines have been developed in recent times for other terrible diseases. Hepatitis B in 1981. First a blood plasma-based vaccine, and later in 1986 the first ever recombinant DNA vaccine produced in yeast cells. Thanks to it, Hep B has been virtually eliminated in children under the age of 18. HIB, or Haemophilus influenza type B pneumonia, in 1985. The bacterial polysaccharide vaccine was routinely recommended for children at age 2. Even more effective pneumonia vaccines were developed in the 1990s. Varicella, or the infamous Chicken Pox, in 1996, made from live attenuated virus. A vaccine for its famous cousin shingles was licensed for adults in 2006. Varicella was added to the childhood MMR vaccine in 2005. So, there you have it. Are we giving our children too many shots and too many vaccines? Are they safe from serious side effects, both immediately and in the long run? Are they effective? Do they confer lasting immunity, again, immediately and in the long run? Do parents have a right to refuse inoculating their children for whatever personal reasons they might have? Do governments have a right to mandate vaccines in the interest of public safety? All excellent questions. History and the overwhelming evidence generated since then has shown us that the above vaccines are all both safe and effective. Our great-grandparents received the smallpox vaccine, our grandparents the tuberculosis vaccine, and our parents the polio vaccine. We have all likely received the triples, DPT and MMR, as kids, as well as annual flu shots as adults, often free from our employers. And we're all still here. So, let history be your judge when deciding, do I or don't I?